Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Sayamrupa Karamayam Darati Sapanantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyatarabhag Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sta Sri Rupam Sagaditam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Savidutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Sta Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sanyavadi Praskita Desadhani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindam. I'd like to talk to you tonight about loving unconditionally. True loving is like light. Light doesn't shine on some, withhold itself from others. Light is there equally for all. True love, like true light, does not discriminate. Vincent Van Gogh, the painter, he said, those who love much, do much and accomplish much, and whatever is done with love is done well. Love is the best and noblest thing in the human heart, especially when it's tested by life as gold is tested by fire. Happy is he who has loved much, and although he may have wavered and doubted, he has kept that divine spark alive and returned to what was in the beginning and ever shall be. As you know, the epic Ramayana, written by the sage Valmiki, is a celebration of love in all of its forms. The hero, the protagonist, Ramachandra, who is an avatar of Lord Krishna, Ramadi, Mortishu, Kala, Nimena, Tishtan, and Avakaram, Akaroda, Bhuvaneshu, Kintu, Krishna, Swayam, Samabhavat, Kanyo, Gobinamari, Purusham, Tamahang, Vajami. Rama exhibited unblemished love for his father, unblemished love for his wife, unblemished love for his brother. He loved not only all those close to him, but he did not draw a line there around his family members. His love, like light, expanded unlimitedly. It was said of the virtuous Ramachandra, he is perfect and will be a perfect ruler. Why? He has compassion, a sense of justice and courage, and he makes no distinctions between living beings, old or young, prince or peasant, animal or human. He has the same consideration for every living entity in courage, valor, and all the qualities. None are equal to Lord Sri Ramachandra. Would you agree with me that it's easy to love people who are just like us, people who look like us, dress like us, worship like us? Now that doesn't take a lot of effort. But what about people that are different from us? People that we don't understand, that we don't agree with? As far as we're concerned, they're just making poor choices. It's easy to size them up from the exterior, put them in a box and think, they're not for me. They're odd. I'm going to keep them a distance away from me. But the love of God, the love of Krishna, is not exclusive, it's inclusive. It does not exclude people that are different. It doesn't write others off because they're not where they should be in life. Krishna's love doesn't ignore somebody because they're not meeting our standards. Unconditional love says, I'm going to love you even if I don't agree with you. I may not agree with your lifestyle, your doctrine, how you're raising your children, the friends that you're choosing, but I know this: you are made in the image of Almighty God. I'm not called to judge you. I'm called to love you. Every person is on a journey. Where they are right now is not where they're going to end up. They're not a finished product. We're all still on the potter's wheel. Vedaham samadhitani vartamani chardu. Krishna says that I don't just see people where they are at present, but I also see of what they are capable in the future. God blesses those who reach out in unconditional love to their fellow human beings. In a letter to Hansa Duda, Prabhupada, our spiritual master, wrote, "With great pleasure, I have noted your unbounded enthusiasm to carry out this great mission of spreading the light and love of Godhead in this dark material world. That is the only requirement for successfully completing the perfection of the living condition, that you should always unconditionally reflect the mercy and love emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord." A remarkable event took place more than 30 years ago in the Gulf of Mexico. Daryl Dore was working on an oil rig when it suddenly began to wobble. Before too long, it tipped to one side and upended into the water. Daryl found himself trapped inside of a room on the rig. And as the rig sank deeper and deeper into the sea, the lights went out and the room where Daryl was trapped began filling with water. He was thrashing about in the darkness. And as he did so, he made a life-saving discovery. A huge air bubble was forming in a corner of the room. He kept his head inside that bubble of air and prayed that someone would find him. As he prayed, Daryl felt God's presence there with him. For 22 hours, that presence comforted Daryl. Deep down, Daryl knew that the oxygen supply inside the bubble was slowly giving out. And when it did, he would die. Then, just in the nick of time, Daryl saw approaching him in the deep pitch black water a tiny star of shimmering light. Was it real, or after 22 hours was he beginning to hallucinate? He squinted his eyes. The light seemed to grow brighter. Squinted again. Dear Lord, he was not hallucinating. The light was real. It was coming from the helmet of a diver who was descending to rescue him. His long nightmare was over. He was safe. What do we learn from this? Instead of writing people off because they are too deeply in the darkness, too low, too far down, Krishna is pleased when anyone like the deep sea rescuer, we reach down, extend a light to help others. In the very last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Nacha tajman marisheshu kashti me prayat, babita nach, anya priyataro bhuvi. There are none more dear to me than those who reach down with the light of love of Godhead to try to pick others up. So often we judge people for where they are today. We think, I'm not going to associate with them. They're a mess. Their story is over. They're done. No, Krishna can use you to plant seeds in their heart. Your love, your friendship, your words of encouragement can be a part of the plan Krishna's designed for their life. None of us would be where we are today without the input of others. Krishna is counting on us to make a difference for our fellow men, not to have a holier-than-thou attitude. He wants us to take off the judgmental glasses. If not for the grace of God, you could be right where they are. The same things we're tempted to be judgmental and critical about. If not for God's goodness, we could be struggling with them as well. If you had walked in their shoes, been raised in their family, fought the battles that they fought, you would probably understand why they are where they are right now. In the areas that you're strong, they just don't happen to be strong in those same areas. That's the mercy of Krishna on your life. Krishna gave you that strength so you could extend it and share it with others. And when we love unconditionally, like Krishna loves, people may not respond right away. And for a long time, it may not seem like it's doing any good. They keep on making poor choices. But here's the key. The seeds that you plant never die. Can I tell you? Researchers found seeds not long ago that were over 4,000 years old. They've been sealed in an airtight coffin. When they planted those seeds, much to their amazement, they took root and grew. Can you imagine? Still alive thousands and thousands of years later. In the same way, the seeds of hope, mercy, encouragement that you plant in other people has been wasted. Every time you show love, you're sowing those seeds. Sometimes, unfortunately, we think we have to force people. We have to get in their faces and convince them. We have to tell them what they're doing wrong, point out all their faults, make sure they feel really guilty. No. The Paramatma, the Lord who's in your heart, is also in their heart. And he's the one ultimately who does the convincing. It's not our job to change or convince others. Krishna does that from within the heart. Our job is just keep sowing those seeds, showing unconditional love. And at the right time, those seeds will come to life. In London, during the reign of Queen Anne in the 18th century, there were few or no streetlights in the cities. A law was passed requiring everyone whose property fronted on a street or alley to hang out a light from 6 to 11 in the evening during the winter months from September until March, when the days were short. It was declared that everyone was responsible for the safety of his neighbors from the dangers of the night. And a man with a lantern used to go through the streets crying, "Hang out your lights, hang out your lights, hang out your lights." That's what Krishna is crying to his devotees today. Hang out your lights. One believer used this analogy. He said that in his basement, some potatoes had begun to sprout, even though they were in the darkest corner of the room. How had they obtained enough light? He was wondering. Then he noticed a copper kettle hanging on the wall opposite a small window. Soon he deduced that the sunshine coming in the window reflected from that copper kettle just enough light over into the dark corner where the potatoes lay to allow them to sprout. That's our job as devotees. We need to catch and reflect enough life from Krishna that we can bring cheer into the darkest corners. In the 12th verse, 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Yada dijagadam tesho jagat vaisiyate kadam yakchamdo yakshando tat tejo vidimamakam. Krishna tells Arjuna, the splendor of the sun which dissipates the darkness of this whole world comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, the splendor of the electricity or fire are coming from the self-same Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entities are essentially parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and he's asking them to do two things. One is to absorb his light and have love and care for yourself as part and parcel of the Lord, and two, to reflect his light and love upon others. The author of the Ramayana himself, Valmiki, had been a loveless man, a criminal named Ratnakara. He robbed people by the roadside in order to maintain his family, until one day a great saint named Narada Muni came by. Now, Narada Muni did not see him as he was at present. Narada Muni, like many devotees, Trikalagya. He could see past, present, and future. So he looked into the future of Valmiki, and he was amazed at what it was Valmiki would be empowered to do in the future. So he asked Valmiki, you're performing all these sinful activities and accruing karma for the sake of your family members. do one thing. Go to your family members and ask them if, inasmuch as they're sharing the plundered, robbed goods, would they also be willing to share in the karma? Valmiki did that and came back extremely dispirited, discouraged, and disappointed. He said, none of my family members wanted to share my karma. My wife told me that I had chosen my profession. It's all on my head. She didn't care about it. My young daughter, for whom I just spent 10,000 rupees to get her married and on her dowry, she didn't want to have anything to do with sharing the karma. My young son, into whose hands I just put the reins of a brand new chariot, he told me, no way, Jose. Then Narada Muni, after seeing the transformation of heart of Ratnakara, asked him to chant the name of Ram, 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 Ram. But because his business was always robbing, plundering, torturing, causing pain and suffering, he could not enunciate the holy name of Ram. Ra, Ra, Ra. And Narada Muni said, your meditation is on death and suffering, and a nickname for the Lord of Death is Yamaraj. The nickname for the Lord of Death, Yamaraj, is Mara. So why don't you chant the name Mara? Valmiki said, well, of course I can do that, but I don't know what good it would do. Mara, Mara, pain, torture, Mara, Mara, suffering, Mara, Mara, misery, Mara, Mara, death, Mara, Ram, 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 Ram. The Mara turned to Ram. This is back in the Satyuga age when people had longer lifespans than we do now. Valmiki went into a trance, chanting the name of Ram. While he sat there, an anthill formed around his body. He became invisible. And many years later, Narada Muni was passing by that same area, and he remembered that he'd met this robber and thief in this area. I said, I wonder whatever happened to him. And he heard from deep in the bowels of this anthill, Ram, 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 Ram. Narada Muni called his disciple out from the anthill. And when Ratnakara emerged from the anthill, overflowing with the boundless joy of love of God and having purged himself from all of his past sins, he got the name Valmiki, or one who joyfully emerges from an anthill. And he went ahead to become Adi Kavi, the first scribe, the first sage, the first literary expression of God's love in the form of the epic Ramayana. I love this parallel quotation from Martin Luther. Martin Luther carries this theme a little further for us. He says, can a rock that has been in the warmth and heat of the sun all day not fail to give off warmth and heat at night? Can a devotee who has chanted the holy names of the Lord not fail to give out warmth and love? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just like when you put iron in fire, the iron becomes hotter and hotter, and finally red hot. The iron then acts like fire itself. So the question is, can one put one's heart in the nectar of the holy name of the Lord by chanting on a regular, consistent, daily basis and not have that heart melt in love of God and love for one's fellow living beings? That's why we have to do first things first. You don't say to others, hey, you, start loving others. Hey, you, be nice. No. First, we need to bathe in the holy names of the Lord, to live in the sunlight of Krishna's love. We need to bake in the sunshine of Krishna's compassion. We need to absorb Krishna's light into us. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then we can start to emanate that unconditional love. It is said, may your love, Lord Krishna, shine on us so that there will be peace in our family and throughout the entire earth. Love, like light, should be inclusive and never exclusive. Love should be equally distributed, not rationed. Love is merciful, not judgmental. Love is understanding, not critical. Love is restoring, not condemning. Love is accepting, not rejecting. If it weren't for Krishna's love and mercy as reflected through his representative Narada Muni, Valmiki would have never written the epic Ramayana. The virtuous story of Lord Ram would never have been told. Love never fails. Why is that? When you're showing love, you're showing God. When you're merciful, understanding, and accepting, that heals, that restores, that brings new life. Our part is to keep showing this unconditional love. Not, I'll love you if I agree with you. No. Our attitude should be, if you have good morals or no morals, I'm still going to love you. If you're clean and sober or you're strung out and addicted, I'm still going to love you. If you're gay or straight, Republican or Democrat, black or white, Muslim or Christian, believer or atheist, doesn't matter. I'm still going to love you. It is said that if you have love for one another, all men will know that you're on the path of light. What would this world be like if instead of judging people, we'd really start loving people? So what if they don't look like you? They're not supposed to. Krishna made millions and millions of varieties. This world is a festival of variegatedness. Maybe they're not where they should be in life right now. That's okay. They're on their own journey. They're not yet a finished product, and for that matter, neither are you. Perhaps they don't worship like you. They come from a different denomination, a different culture, maybe even a different faith. That's okay. Don't shut them out. Krishna is the God of all living beings. Sarvasya chaham hridi shanivishto matashmitir gyanam. It says, I am the heart of every living being. He doesn't just say I'm in the heart of Hindus. He doesn't just say I'm in the heart of human beings. He says I'm in the heart of every living being. Krishna is a God of the whole earth. He's the God of all living beings. He's not a God only for whites or only for blacks or only for Mexicans or only for Koreans. He's not even exclusively a God for human beings. Sarva yonishu kantya murtya sambhava tajma brahmahad aham bija prada pita. He's the Father of all living beings. He's like the sun, which is neither an Eastern sun or a Western sun. It's neither a Christian sun or a Muslim sun, Jewish sun, American sun. It's not an Australian sun. The sun is transcendental. Sarva parivamir raktam tatpapena rishikesha rishikena bhaktir uttama. Transcendental to all those designations. But so many times we have this narrow view of God. We have our little circle of what we believe and who we think is right. We exclude everyone else. We point out their faults, what they're doing wrong, where we don't agree. We focus on all the things that separate and divide us. But the longer I live, the more I realize how big Krishna's circle is, how wide his mercy extends. When we get to the spiritual world, we're going to be surprised at who's there, and probably a lot of the ones that are there are going to be surprised that we're there. I heard somebody say, thinking that your religion is the only religion is like filling your bathtub with water and calling it the Pacific Ocean. Can I tell you that we're all missing it somewhere? Achinta kaloye bhavana tarms tena yojya. Love of God begins when you accept that he has potencies which are inconceivable to our tiny brains. Love is bigger than a theological difference. It's bigger than what church or temple or mosque you belong to. It's bigger than what faith you practice. It's bigger than a political or philosophical difference. I don't have to see eye to eye with you in order to love you. If you draw a circle to shut me out, I'll tell you what, I'm going to draw a bigger circle to bring you in. I heard a joke about a young Irishman who had just emigrated to New York. As you know, in Ireland, the orange represent the Protestants and the green represent the Catholics. So he was crossing a busy intersection while the light was against him. A policeman stopped him to see what the problem was. The policeman, who was also Irish and delighted to meet someone from the old country, the policeman explained to the newcomer, you can cross the street when the light turns green. The Irishman understood perfectly now. He waited on the corner for a moment. The warning light turned orange for just a second, and then it turned green and stayed that way until the Irishman was safely across the street. He turned back to wave to the policeman and thank him for his help, and he shouted across. He said, they don't allow the Protestants much time to cross the street, do they? And when you love unconditionally, it means you have a wide circle. You're not judging everybody to see if they fit into your little box. Your light and your love is meant to shine on blacks, whites, Hispanic, Asians, Indians, rich, poor, young, old, Democrats, Republicans, Protestants, Catholics, Longhorns, Aggies, Jewish, Buddhists, all the mammals of the earth, birds of the air, and fish of the sea. This is what heaven is going to be like. It is called the peaceable kingdom. There's no enmity. Yatra nasharga durirasha hashani mitrani dajacha drutarut tarshanadikam. A few verses from MC Yogi's rap song, Give Me Love. Hush, little darling, don't you cry. Every little thing's going to be all right. Don't you worry. Don't you be afraid. Every little thing's going to be okay. Open up your heart and lock the cage. Turn the key and break the chains. Love will always find a way. Always remember and never forget, what you give is what you get. You want love, you got to give love. Give love away. Love is the best medicine. I shine like Edison whenever I let it in. Love is the power that opens every flower, transforms this coward into a champion. When you're lost, love is sent to remind you, offering signs and providing guidance. Love is infinite and timeless. Look inside your heart is where you'll find it. Love is the answer. Love is the key. Love is the glue between you and me. Just open up your heart and love will make you free. Love is the remedy. Love is the cure. Love is the only thing that will stop the war. It's what the whole world is looking for. So what are you waiting for? Always remember and never forget, what you give is what you get. You want love, you got to give love. Give love away. Give love to your brother. Give love to your mother. Give love to your father. Give love to your sons and your daughters. Give love to your sister and all your friends. Shine your love in all directions. Giving and receiving is just like breathing. Living to give love gives life meaning, because love is righteous and it might just save the world from the global crisis. Always remember and never forget, what you give is what you get. You want love, you got to give love. Give love. Give love away. Moving from MC Yogi to Martin Luther King, who said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And further, in a letter from Birmingham jail to some moderate clergy who had criticized Dr. Martin Luther King for being too extreme, he wrote these words. So the question is not whether we'll be extremists, but what kind of extremists we'll be. Will we be extremists for hate or extremists for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? In the dramatic scene on Calvary Hill, 3 men were crucified. We must never forget that all 3 were crucified for the same crime, the crime of extremism. 2 were extremists for immorality and thus fell below their environment. The other, Jesus Christ, was an extremist for love, an extremist for truth, an extremist for goodness, and thereby rose above his environment. I also hope that circumstances will soon make it possible for me to meet each of you, not as an integrationist or civil rights leader, but as a fellow clergyman and a brother. Let us all hope that the dark clouds of prejudice and hatred will soon pass away from our fear-drenched communities, and in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all their scintillating beauty. We can all say, where would we be without the extreme mercy of God? when we didn't deserve it, when we made mistakes. Krishna showed us his extreme unconditional love. He's asking us to show the same love to other people. Don't look at them through eyes of judgment. Look at them through eyes of mercy. Well, true, I don't think she should be wearing that in church. That's not appropriate. Maybe not, but I would rather she be in here than out there in the clubs. And you don't know what she's been through. You haven't walked in her shoes. There's usually a good reason why people are the way they are. And we have to give them room while they're in the process of transformation. If we're judgmental, holier than thou, looking down on them, that's not going to help them move forward. That's conditional love. If you meet all my demands, then I'll love you, then I'll accept you. No, Krishna freely, open-handedly gave us mercy. Let's also freely give mercy to other people. What's my point? Don't judge by the exterior. I found that whether I wear a suit or whether I wear jeans, it doesn't affect the inner me. My spiritual self is the same, whether I'm wearing cotton or denim. What's important is the attitude of the heart. So what if they don't look like you? So what if they don't dress like you? So what if they don't act like you? That's all right. They're on a journey. They're not a finished product. Here it is, real simple. Don't judge lest ye be judged. You may not understand someone, but you don't have to understand them to love them. You don't have to agree with them to accept them. That's why it's called loving unconditionally. I heard a story about a lady and her husband. They had a dog named Lucky, and whenever they had company for the weekend, they would always warn their guests to make sure they didn't leave their suitcases open, because Lucky loved to break in, get something out, and take it down to the basement where his toy box was so that he could play with it later, and they were always finding their belongings down there. One day, the lady was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was in the hospital for 3 weeks. The husband would take Lucky on his nightly walks, but it just wasn't the same. Lucky loved this lady. He stayed with her in the house everywhere she went. She came home after the surgery and was very weak. She couldn't even make it upstairs to the bedroom, so she just lay down on the couch, and Lucky lay down by her side. You could tell that Lucky didn't like it, that this lady was feeling badly. She dozed off to sleep and woke up an hour later. It was hard to breathe. She was hot, and she felt all this weight on her chest and these things poking her. She began to panic. She thought, what's going on? What's happening? And pretty soon, she started to smile. Why? Because Lucky had gone down to the basement, got all of his toys, and brought them back and placed them all over the body of the lady. While she was sleeping, he made trip after trip, trying to make her feel better. Now she was literally covered with his love. That's our challenge today. Start covering people with love. It's easy to cover people with judgment, cover them with condemnation, cover them with guilt, but let's start covering people with love. Love heals. Love brings down barriers. Love puts people back on their feet. You may not understand someone, but that's okay. Have a wide circle of love. Remember, they're on a journey. Where they are is not where they're going to end up. Krishna is counting on us to make a difference. He's counting on us to push them forward, counting on us to show them mercy, to be understanding, counting on us to give them the benefit of the doubt. If you'll have this unconditional love, not only will you help others, but your life will improve with more joy, more peace, more sweetness. If you have this unconditional Krishna love, I believe you'll step into the fullness of your destiny in this life and in the next life. Go back to home, back to God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki